Are you an athlete?
Yes, always and forever.
Have you always answered that question that way?
Since the day I was born.
I love it.
So I played for a year in Germany
Okay.
after school. For me, it was a global pandemic. I planned to play 2 years overseas, and I wanted to come back and play in the NWSL, and I had a vision that I was going to keep playing for years. When that was kind of taken away from me, I wasn't walking away on my own terms. I still had more left in the tank, but the world was in shambles, and I had to figure out what was next. There's a photo of me on the field, my head in my hands. Wow, this is both the apex. I won a gold medal. I was representing my country, but also ending of my career. Then I was crying of joy and celebration, but also, wow, this is it, and this is the end.
Majority of athletes do not get to end their athletic career on a win. Who am I?
Right. What's my purpose and where are my people? And that is where a lot of people feel, that identity loss.
Yeah.
But in terms of who you are, what makes you an athlete, that's forever.
Today on the No Former Athlete podcast, we are joined by Taylor Cohen, a former pro soccer player who played abroad after winning a national championship in college. Taylor has walked through multiple retirements from sport, one forced by the pandemic and one on her own terms, and she's turned that experience into purpose. She's the founder of AthletEX, a growing community helping athletes find connection and support after sport. Let's dive in. Are you an athlete?
Yes, always and forever.
Have you always answered that question that way?
Since the day I was born.
I love it. I love it. The post playing competitively, all of that, you've never wavered in your, I identify as an athlete. I am an athlete. It'll always be a part of me.
It'll always be a part of me. I forever treat myself in the way I train and act as an athlete. I think it's different when you're no longer playing competitively. And that is where a lot of people feel, that identity loss.
Yeah.
But in terms of who you are, what makes you an athlete, that's forever.
Give us kind of brief history of your personal athletic experiences, and then we'll get into some of the awesome things you're doing now.
Yeah, so been an athlete my whole life. I was a multi-sport athlete growing up, so I played soccer and basketball, and that was both my brother and I did, and then he chose basketball for college, and I chose soccer for college.
Okay.
And then I played collegiately at Washington University in St. Louis, and then I actually went on to play professionally too after school in Germany and Israel.
Very cool. How many years did you play professionally after college?
So it was during COVID, so I had a little bit of a unique
That's right.
experience.
You were in 2020.
Too. Yeah, so I played for a year in Germany after school. Then I actually started working in the corporate world for a couple of years, came back out of retirement just because I couldn't walk away. And then I played in Israel again.
Okay. How was it?
Amazing. Like the best experience of my life.
Yeah. Since you've already had a retirement come out of retirement moment, do you remember kind of the first retirement? Again, yours obviously was kind of clouded a little bit with COVID, and I'm sure that was just strange and hard and living abroad and all of that. But talk about that a little bit, your decision to retire the first time.
Yes, that was really difficult because I think like so many other athletes, when you're retiring, sometimes it's out of your control, whether it's an injury, maybe it's a bad experience with a coach. For me, it was a global pandemic. And, I planned to play 2 years overseas, and I wanted to come back and play in the NWSL. And I had a vision that I was going to keep playing for years. And so when that was kind of taken away from me and I was forced to make that decision, it was really hard to feel like I wasn't walking away on my own terms. I still had more left in the tank, but the world was in shambles and I had to figure out what was next. So that transition was really difficult for me.
Yeah. You came back to the States. Were you living here in New York at that time, or?
I went to Chicago.
Oh, okay.
And I was working at a sports agency in Chicago. I knew I always wanted to work in sports, whether I was, playing or actually being in the business side. But and I had, a good career opportunity, and I had a good undergrad education that I was really set up for, what life would be like after sports. But it was still during those working days that I was struggling with the idea of missing playing and missing being on a team and missing being, within that athlete environment all the time.
Totally. So the opportunity to then come out of retirement.
Yes.
How did that come about? Was that something you pursued specifically, or was it kind of an opportunity that came to you?
Both. I played in the Maccabi Games in Israel, and it was supposed to happen the year of COVID, and it was canceled. And so it was on my radar. And then when I started working again, I didn't really think I thought I was done. I wasn't really sure. And I actually missed an Instagram DM from the coach and asking if I wanted to attend tryouts. And I had missed the tryouts. I couldn't believe it. But I was like, oh my goodness, like this is an opportunity. It was still, a year away. And I immediately reached out, got on the phone with the coach, with the head of the organization. And I wanted to still try to be able to play even though I'd missed the tryouts. And so it just came to me at the right time when I was really feeling the pain points of my transition still, and felt like this was a way that I could actually go and compete again and walk away on my own terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, going into that, was that just a tournament, or did you actually play a season and things like that?
It was just the summer games. You go for a training camp for 2 weeks, and then the games are like a 2.5, 3 weeks too, with athletes from around the world.
You knew it was a set period of time, but it gave you that moment to be like, oh, okay, this is going to be my final tournament.
Yes. It was a finite amount of time that I was going to be competing. My job at the time let me leave work and take time off to go and compete again. But I was working 9 to 5, and then I would go in the evenings, and I was training every night. And it was a lot to do leading up to it. But for me, this was really an opportunity that I would have to get to compete again and know at the end of this, I'd be good and I'm ready for what's next, but that I still could, scratch that itch that I had.
Yeah. Once you got to the end of that, did you actually feel good about it?
That was hard. Again,
Yeah.
like for us, we won a gold medal in that.
Amazing.
So I ended my career on a win, which not many athletes get to say.
No, they do not.
But there was a moment, actually, there's a photo of it that somebody captured of me on field after the game. I'm standing there or kneeling on the ground with my head in my hands, thinking like, wow, this is both the apex. I won a gold medal. I was representing my country, but also ending of my career. And both of those happening at once. And I was crying, and it was overwhelmed feelings of joy and celebration, but also, wow, this is it. And this is the end. And so it was really those mixed emotions in those moments.
You're exactly right. Majority of athletes do not get to end their athletic career, their sports career on a win.
Yep.
And so much is built up on a national championship, a tournament championship, a world championship, that it's like, you won. Be happy. You did everything you could. But it's like that win doesn't take away everything else underneath, that it's still the last regardless of what the outcome of that one particular game is.
Yeah. I even remember my senior year of college, and I did win a national championship, and that was my freshman year. But senior year, our team was really good. We were going into the NCAA tournament. We made it to the Elite Eight that year. But I remember in the practices leading up of realizing, wow, this could be it. I didn't know that I was going to play pro, and I was fighting for every minute to win and hopefully end with the championship. But you also have that like loom and doom coming that also at the time that could be it.
You're literally in the middle of this season. So it's like the goal of the season is national championship. Your brain is just so focused on that, and you're just in the zone. And the whole idea is like, make the most of every second, and all that. And you're like, but in the back of your brain, when you are a senior collegiate athlete and you're intense, you're competitive, you can only be focused on that goal ahead of you. Yet at the same time, you're like, oh my gosh, whenever we lose, I'm done.
There's actually a practice going into the NCAA tournament where I kind of started crying part of it, thinking about, wow, this is my last NCAA tournament. We're headed into, the final weeks of the season here. There's only
you lose, you're done.
You're out. But then there's also my script flipped. And I kind of said to the whole team, though, because I was also the only senior playing at that time. Every single other person in my class was injured. So I was a solo senior. And they were kind of looking at me like, we can't lose this for her. And I said, you can't play not to lose.
Correct.
You have to play to win. And like that mentality will take us through this tournament of we're here to show up every day because we want that championship at the end, not because we're afraid of it being taken away.
Absolutely.
But yeah, sure, for myself, I knew that I only had a couple games left, but I was like, well, I want to get to the championship. I want to make it that far, and I want to push to the end. And then that mentality of playing to win and not being afraid to lose, I think also makes a difference for people at the ends of their career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here we are, 2024, couple years, no longer playing professionally. How are you doing? How are you doing now?
I'm great now. I'm great, but it was also during those years of transition out the last couple of years that I still, even though I was okay in putting to rest the idea that I was still playing soccer competitively, there was still aspects of missing everything that comes with a team and finding yourself in a new city and a new career path and missing those people and everything else, intangibles that came with being on a team too.
You knew you had that final tournament. Then you came back after the tournament. What were those next few months like? Kind of what was the start of your transition into retired athlete life?
Yeah. So for me, because I had kind of experienced it once and now I was experiencing it again, I felt like I was a little more prepared for that time because I was choosing to walk away now on my own terms. But I had this idea in my head for a while of doing something that would support other athletes as they were going through that, because I also felt like I made that decision on my own when all my other teammates had already processed it after college and I was still playing and felt isolated in that. And so I honestly came back, left my job, and decided to pursue creating a company for former athletes full time.
Incredible. You were able to extend your playing time. Your teammates that you had graduated with in college, they were now probably 2
years into working.
2-3 years into working world.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you saw and felt all the things that they had been going through as well.
It was difficult because they all kind of went through that decision and that process at the same time. And I was still like senior spring when people are kind of entering more of like the social scene a bit more. I was still training hard and I was meeting up with my coach all the time to practice. And I was doing that even in the months of COVID, training really hard while my teammates and stuff were going through that transition. And so they already went through that. And then by the time that I was making that decision, I felt isolated. And I was calling, my 1 or 2 friends who also played pro and had the experience too. And I called my former assistant coach because, she went through that decision recently too, to leave pro and then end up coaching. But I felt like I had limited people that I could actually talk to about it who were going through it at that moment because everyone else had kind of already processed and moved on.
Yeah. So many people have similar yet different, but similar experiences, no matter what sport they played, no matter kind of how far into their sport they played. But it's the timing of it when it's these people that were your family, your teammates, all of that. And then their next kind of collective experience is, like you said, entering the workforce or feeling that kind of transition.
Right.
It's interesting too, because I was talking to another friend of mine who had played football. We were talking too about the season of sport you are. So like for you guys, women's soccer is a fall sport.
Yep.
Football's a fall sport. For us, for basketball, we're in all the semesters. We're a 5-month season from October to hopefully March. But it was interesting too, because like you were just describing, you and your classmates had the spring semester to, for you, continue training. But for your classmates and that too, it was kind of like, okay, we still get to hang out. We get to have these moments. They're kind of like our finalizing friend moments before you transition.
Yeah, you're almost grieving the sport and the school and college and friends, everything at once. And I think about that normally for anyone graduating college. Yes, of course, you're all leaving the space and transitioning to something new. But then the athletes have the athlete identity aspect too. And those are both 2 huge major life transitions all happening at once. But yeah, for winter sports athletes, spring sport athletes, even baseball, who's like playing past graduation, now they missed all the opportunities.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, both my brothers have played college baseball, and it's always like, okay, maybe we're in town to go walk for graduation, but we still have conference. Like they haven't even started their postseason conference tournament. Talk a little bit about, we've seen your transition, your company, AthletEX. Did you always know how you wanted it to look, or has it kind of transpired over the last couple years?
Yeah, it's definitely been a journey and learning. And on the entrepreneurial side, you have to be able to pivot. Your idea of what you think is going to work might not be the right answer, and being okay with trying different things. And so I always knew that I wanted to do something for former athletes in that transition, how can we support? But there's so many nuances to that, and every athlete's experience is different, and what they need in their transition out is different. Their biggest pain points, also, like you said, someone who just graduated versus 3 years out, those needs look a little different. And so this idea of how do you service something for everyone becomes a challenging puzzle to put together. But that's been, I think, the last couple of years for me. One was just starting interviewing, calling, talking to so many athletes, all former teammates, people I'd met even around the world, just to hear their stories and where they find the biggest pain points. And then from actually launching the company a year ago, it's been really just testing things. And what do people want to see? What do they feel like they're missing in their lives? And really just leaning on the athletes to be able to speak to us about what they want to see as part of their support in transitioning.
Yeah. I've now been following you for a little while.
Yeah.
So I've seen some of the events that you're putting on and things like that. But for people either in New York specifically or kind of other areas.
Yes. So AthletEX came together under this idea that the biggest struggles are losing identity and community. And especially after COVID, and everyone felt so isolated and wanting to find people and communities that resonated with them. We saw the rise of run clubs and all these different niche-based organizations. And I saw there really wasn't anything for this athlete space, yet there's so many athletes all over the country. There's 460,000 NCAA athletes currently. 2% go on to play pro. So that's 98% of people are graduating every single year, losing this community. And so that's the idea that I wanted to tap into, is how can we build a space to help athletes find their team again, connect them with resources, and really just offer all different types of events to build a strong community and form these meaningful relationships that you once had when you had teammates at your school.
Yeah. So much of it is, okay, some people stay close to where they went to college. Some people are moving for a job or moving for family or moving for a relationship. And so much of that, you know it in your head, but you don't realize it's like, oh no, each phase of life, right? Junior high, high school, college, like, oh, I've always kind of been just like handed friends, handed community on a platter, more or less, that I know I'm going to have a common goal with these people.
Right.
And then, like you said, end up in a new city, in a new job, and it's like, oh,
where are my people?
Yeah. Like adult friends.
Yes.
We don't just immediately have, like, we're not trying to win a national championship in 3 months. So wait, how do we base this?
Right. And so, that's what we wanted to do, is you're moving to a new city. And of course, you might know people in those cities, but you're still looking for those like-minded people that you want to relate to in the same ways that you used to relate to your teammates. And, the athlete world is so small. So every time we're hosting events, athletes are coming up to each other. Oh my God, I played against your brother in high school. I know you from preschool. We played each other in the NCAA tournament. It's just such an overlap. But when we bring people into these spaces, it's just this immediate connection that they feel, because you understand each other and the experiences that you went to, and you're very similar minded and driven and goal oriented and all the aspects that make you an athlete for life, just connect one another. And it's just an easy way to build connections with people, because you already have this big piece of you that is a common identity. And so we'll do everything from fitness events, health and wellness events like ice baths and recovery days, but we make it fun, not like what you used to have to be forced to do. We'll do networking events, social events, panels, and just really kind of build community around all aspects of what it means to find people. Since we host a lot of workout classes, it's really great to see all the athletes in one space feeling like it's like a team lift almost environment again. Because we all go to workout classes, or you find time in your calendar to go run or whatever it is, but you don't have that same, we're all walking in the room, we're all wearing our team shirt. You feel that sense of camaraderie, you're giving high fives. And when we host our workouts, you see that, and it really does feel like that again. So I think that's been really special for people, and also giving them like a routine again. You were used to having the training program handed to you, and here's your training packet for the summer. You walk into the training room, and here's set 1A, 1B, 1C. Everything's all written out for you. And now you got to find your new workout schedule and even what your workout motivation is. And so when we're building events around, workouts and fitness, it just gets people into routine again and feels like they have, a team to do that together. The other big thing I'd say is definitely our social events do really well. So I feel like for the majority, people maybe feel like they're in a good space with careers, or if they're not, this is a space to come and network and talk to people and see if those connections can open doors. But really, we're all just looking for, that third space, people call it. You have your home life, you have your work life. What is this third space so we're all existing? And so being able to offer social opportunities has been a really great place for people to just come and feel like it's an outlet, and they can really just engage with people that feels like meaningful. And the other thing we do is provide access to resources. So similar to when you were on campus, you walked into the training room, there's a team doctor, nutritionist, physical therapist, ice baths, rolling out area, whatever. You have that all at your disposal. And now when you get in the real world, people might need PTs, or they might need to find a new workout trainer, and it's hard to find those same accessible, vetted resources. So another thing that we're doing is connecting our athletes with those trusted people within their cities as well.
Very cool. Having events gives validity as well. Having the conversations, talking in this form as well is giving validity to the people who are just coming out, to where it's like, normally I'd be starting 2-a-days right now. Normally, whatever it is. It gives that space to be like, oh, okay, so other people really are feeling this, even if my teammates aren't talking about it right now, to where that transition can be addressed earlier on.
Yes.
Because I will tell you, it looks a little different when you hit year 10, 11, 12, and all of a sudden then your teammates are like, oh, okay, you've been feeling this for all these years too, and you don't realize how much it affects your decision making and subconsciously, what you've decided to do, maybe career-wise, what you have felt like you needed to do career-wise, how you've kind of filled all these little like coping void areas.
It's not talked about enough, and people are all experiencing it. It's global. Everyone goes through it, no matter where you are.
Whether you stopped in high school, whether you played professionally.
It's going to come to an end, and we all go through it, but it's not talked about enough.
Previously, for me at least, all the language you kind of heard about, right, was kind of that like washed up athlete, living in the glory days, like all those things that were, whether people intended for it to have a negative connotation on it or not, it did. Even like I can remember, growing up playing travel sports, competitive sports, and you hear the parents talking about their experience playing sports. And it was like, oh, here they go again. It's like, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay for like people to still feel that, for people to talk about that athletic experience and be able to step now into these event spaces, into these mental health talks with other people that are like, oh, okay, yeah, you still feel the athlete in you too. Okay, good.
I feel like society almost pushes you to just get over it, move on. Yeah. And I actually felt that when I was making the first decision to retire that was a really hard decision for me to make. And I almost felt like I was behind in pressure because so many of my teammates were now 2 years into their careers. And all of a sudden I felt, well, now I'm behind in my career world. But that was something that I was really struggling with too, because it was almost these like societal pressures to feel like you have to get a jump start in whatever that is that was next, when I really wasn't ready to walk away. And that was difficult because I feel like just people are naturally being, pushed to get over it or move on or just start your next chapter. And that's not so easy.
No.
For everyone.
And it's not how you have to do it, right? We're so driven by that competitiveness, by knowing what's next. And especially in sport, right? It's like, the next team you're trying out for, the next season. You're always preparing for the next season. And it's like, yes, use that. It's also okay if you don't have an answer right that second, because you're right that when you see other people starting their, corporate journeys, or you see them, they might not be doing that.
Right.
3 to 5 years from now.
We could get into a whole thing on social media of 100%. Like the comparison culture. And
absolutely.
I think athletes, we also have like a success complex a little bit too. So when you're seeing things and you're thinking, am I behind? Am I not doing enough? Could I be doing more? We're naturally driven, but then it's also brought on just by the media and everything going on in society, that it can feel like that you are behind. But so much of your 20s, 30s, whatever, is just about trying things, figuring out who you are. And on top of that, with the athlete transition piece too, it's also figuring out who you are outside that sport. Yeah. And that's all that this like time period is where do I see myself in the world? What's my purpose? And where are my people? Where do I want to belong? And what do I want to do?
Absolutely. We learn from such a young age when you see people posting successes and that success complex of social media, of just hearing people talk about it, right? We are so trained as athletes. You've got off season, you've got in season, you've got preseason. Well, preseason's when you're conditioning, when you're doing all your things to be, in ready fitness, ready shape for when your first game actually comes. So we are taught that we are always supposed to be ready. We're always supposed to be preparing for that success. So if all of a sudden now we see people that are having success right at this moment in whatever thing that they're doing, we're like, oh my gosh, did I not do my off-season workouts correctly?
Right. The prep work.
Did I not prepare myself for season?
Yeah.
And here I am going into my first game and I'm not prepared.
I feel like that can then take away from people being present.
Absolutely.
And I think that is a big aspect too that I've definitely experienced over the last couple of years is, this grass is always greener mentality of looking towards the next thing because we always had a plan. We always knew what we were prepping for. Off season was to get us ready for the in season. If you didn't win a national championship or if you did, whatever, now you got to start the work all over for the next year. But you're right. There was always something that you were working towards. And when you're in this next space, it's kind of about figuring that out on your own. But because it's built into your nature and what you've experienced, it can be really hard to just be then present in what you're doing. It's good to have goals. It's good to be looking forward. It's good to always be putting in the work to prep and know what you want and be able to work to accomplish that, of course, but also to kind of be where your feet are and be present to what you're doing in that moment too.
At whatever state you're in, at whatever part of your process you're in.
Yes.
I think for a long time in my life, right, it's that comparison is the thief of joy. Mm-hmm. I so wholeheartedly do think that's correct and exists. However, in the world of sport and in the world of trying to win championships, winning championships, you also are always comparing your team to the other teams in your conference, your teams to the other teams that you're playing against, to where it's like, okay, where do I rank you to your teammates in terms of getting playing time and getting, trying to be on the starting 5, 11, however many. I feel like there's such a balance, and it's that kind of post-sport is so torn in you're exactly right, be where you are, quit comparing yourself to everything else. Yet we are so trained in comparing ourselves to everything else.
I was a forward, and I would check every single week to see who was leading the UAA in goals scored. Every single week, I wanted to know that I was at the top of that list.
Yep.
And that was comparison external, but I also think I was very, self-driven, self-motivated, and competitive with myself. If I had a bad practice, that wasn't me in comparison to anyone else. That was me to me. Like, I knew that I could be better, I could show up better. And so it's always ingrained with us, competitively, where we maybe rank against things externally, but also within yourself and where you're used to being. And that totally translates to where we are now.
How have you balanced that for you personally? Was there an aha moment, or how do you kind of grapple with that now?
I actually think I'm going to give my coach a little bit of credit for this too. Something he actually made kind of a rule is we actually weren't allowed to watch some of the other games in our conferences going on because he didn't want it to be an external comparison. Of course, we would watch game film prior and know how to prep and we were going up against, but it was very much focused on what are our strengths and how are we coming together and building the team, and not so much, sitting in the airport, which we would do kind of secretly, and watching U Chicago play Brandeis. And he saw us doing that one time and got mad because it should be really, let's focus on us. Let's focus on have the power to control within ourselves and play to our strengths. And I think that is something even that I carry over into an entrepreneurial sense too, of, companies don't always die because of competition. They also die because of their own ability to continue to keep going. And so the more you can just stay focused on the things that you can control and not always look as external forces of pressure that are going to be the reasons why you fail, the more that you can just be, focused on what you're building. And so I think that it's important to, I look at competitors, I look at things all the time for ideas, but it's not because I need to catch up to them. It's more just to help prep what we're doing. But how can I really just be competitive within my own realm, within my own space, to feel like I'm building something for me or for the company that makes sense, and not so much because this company did this and we're not doing this.
Yeah. And there's room for all of it. How many brands of hand soap are there? How many different types of pop or soda? It's like all these things can grow together. Yeah, there's still those competitive moments. There's still those moments where you're like, oh.
And it doesn't have to be so a you versus me mentality, which I've actually been super grateful for. One is like a female founder connecting to other female founders in this space who are, willing to share and grow, but then also being in New York and just connecting to other communities or people within the fitness, health, wellness space. I've found it is a very helpful, community-oriented environment, and that, we're all trying to see each other succeed. Honestly, similar to when you are in a team, of course, there's innate competition, but also that we all want to win together. And how can I help you? How can you help me? And it's very that mutually kind of collaborative environment, which I appreciate, as a founder and within the like sports, health, and wellness space, that the more that you're sharing, the more that you can learn, and the more that honestly everyone can benefit and grow together.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that is popping into your head right now that you really want to share? Anything else about kind of no former athlete, athletics concepts that you want to put out there?
We didn't talk about injuries, and I want to talk about that as a big one too.
Absolutely.
Because yes, I had my fair share of things while I was playing. I did my ACL. I rolled my ankles 20,000 times, as we all do.
Your ligaments might be a little stretched out.
They are. It's all a mess. But honestly, in my years afterwards, I've been dealing with really bad back and hip pain for the last 3 years.
I remember seeing a post that you made about that.
And that's been ongoing.
Let's talk about it.
Trying to, figure out, one, what's going on, but two, it's also kept me out of competing and playing and doing all the active things that I want to do in my life. And that's really difficult too, because when you're an athlete and you're sitting on the bench, you're feeling the pain so deeply because you can't be on the team, but you're showing up to practice every day. And that is really hard. But in my life too, I'm normally working out, 6-7 times a week, no days off, still happens now. And I want to do all these other things. I'm a big skier and a runner, and I play tennis, and I want to explore these other parts of me, but you can't when you're injured.
Yeah.
And it can be hard without having an answer as to why you're in pain. But then also that idea of being on the sidelines happens while you're an athlete, and happens, in life after too.
Yeah. And while you're an athlete and injured, like you said, it makes it hard to still show up to practices and that, but you still have a practice to show up to.
Right.
And you still are being seen as a part of the team, even as you're rehabbing or going through your, injury. And when you don't have a practice to show up, if you're not actively at that workout, you're just dealing with your injury on your own.
Right.
You don't have that team support in the same way. Yeah, you might have, a consistent workout class or, a trainer that you work with that's checking in on you. But like you said, it's like, oh, also, yeah, if I'm not showing up to these spaces, who am I?
Right.
Who am I? And I'm sitting here in this pain and I'm trying to figure out why so that I can get back to doing the things that make me feel like me.
Like our teammates in college who were injured, we brought the elliptical out. You were sitting there and being able to do your rehab while you're still watching practice and you're still a part of something. Right. Well, now everyone's dealing with injuries as a post playing athlete, and you feel more in that isolated sense of mind as well. And it's also, I think, difficult too, because when you were on campus, you had your physical therapist, you had all these resources that you trusted. And now I've seen so many doctors, so many PTs, like I can't even explain to you how many of the things that I've done. And it's really hard to find those people that are, going to take care of you, that you trust, that understand, everything about you the same way that you had access to when you were playing.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say too, even from a physical therapist perspective, in the same way that not every coach is created equal, not every doctor is created equal, not every PT is created equal, and post PT school, I worked my first 4.5 years in an outpatient ortho and sports clinic. And you still see, honestly, for me, this is where a lot of the no former athlete type things started. I was seeing sometimes people in their 50s, 60s, 70s getting joint replacements and things like that. And you're like trying to get them to do a specific exercise or like activate a certain muscle group. All of a sudden I'm just like, did you play sports growing up?
Yeah.
You can usually tell by the way they walk in. But I'm like, did you play sports growing up? Oh, yeah. I played baseball back in the day. Okay. I need you to hip hinge like you're getting into a ready position. Like you're getting, and it's like, it just still clicks for people.
Yes.
But again, for me, that comes from my experience of being an athlete myself. And I'm not saying that you have to be a PT, to be in these spaces, but how much of a difference does it make when you can connect with that person that can also see you and what your drive is?
Yep.
That's half the battle as a physical therapist, right? Is like within me doing an eval for somebody, my brain is kind of subconsciously calculating, okay, is this a person that's going to way overwork themselves or are they going to way underwork themselves? Because then that dictates what I'm giving them and kind of that guide. Is this a person who can tap into the athlete side and wants to get back to a super high level class, whether it's, CrossFit, HIIT training, an ultra marathon, whatever. Get them back to their full playing shape.
Yes. It's just a different level of understanding. And I've worked with so many PTs, and I will only work with someone who either was a former athlete or works with a lot of athletes now, because it's just a different level of understanding to what your needs are. And that's what honestly so many of the athletes in our community feel too, is they're asking for a lot of connections to like recovery resources right now, because a lot of people are training for the New York Marathon coming up, and people, need to emphasize recovery or either rehabbing or preventative measures that, was once ingrained into your training program. And so being able to connect them with the right people who just understand that athlete mindset and understand the whole picture of what it means to be an athlete, and working with the right providers who understand that too is really important.
Yeah. What advice from you because you've gone through this injury journey. How are you doing now, by the way?
I have to get surgery. So now we're just prepping for surgery and trying to get
prehab,
getting
strong
as
before
I can
surgery.
Exactly.
That a girl.
Yep.
Good. You've got this.
Yes.
You've so got this.
Thank you.
What steps or what advice would you say to people that are kind of maybe in a similar space that you were in, where you had, a chronic nagging injury that you couldn't get figured out, couldn't get addressed?
Yeah, I'd say definitely yourself, more than anyone else. And it can be really discouraging when you can connect with doctors, whoever it is, who, don't see that you have an issue or don't know what the problem is. And it can feel like there's no answers. And that can be really hard, especially if it is chronic over time. But your body more than anyone else. And just to be an advocate for your own health and to continue to have conversations, or, if you didn't get the exact answer you were looking for in this space, let's try something else. And just to not give up, because there are so many different avenues or resources to support your health that you can go and do and try. It's just about finding the right team, honestly, to surround yourself with. And, I work with a cupping guy, a dry needling guy, a chiropractor, a physical therapist, a functional patterns trainer. I have, a whole team of people. Everyone texts me all the time. Who do you know in the city? I'm like, I got you. But it is about trial and error and continuing to just find the people who can really be in your corner to get you back to where you want to be. And even though that some parts of that journey are going to be discouraging, your body, what you need, and just to be able to go out and continue to find those resources for people that can support you.
Absolutely. People that want to find out more about you, where can they follow? Where can they get all the information?
Yes. Right now, we're primarily on Instagram. I feel like everyone finds us through Instagram or TikTok nowadays. Yeah. People can get involved in the community.
This was fantastic.
Thank you.
Glad we've officially connected now.
Yes. Thanks. You so much.
If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review. You taking that 5 minutes makes a huge difference and helps us to be able to make more episodes like this. And if you want to see more content in between the episodes, follow us at NoFormerAthlete on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm so glad you're a part of this No Former Athlete community. And if you know any No Former Athletes that you think I should get in touch with, DM me on Instagram at NoFormerAthlete. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.